Progress, evolution. We like it when companies take risks and build their brands. Last year, Alcatel delivered one of our favorite budget options. For 2016, the Idol pushes into mid-tier pricing with the 4S. It's a crowded market, so does this phone have the goods to compete between Motos and OnePluses? Now, positioning a phone at $350 is a delicate balancing act. Alcatel has done a commendable job of maximizing these specs for the price. We get a really pretty 5.5-inch AMOLED screen with a Quad HD resolution. It's respectably bright with good outdoor brightness, and under manual control, it hangs right with the Galaxy S7. Now, the phone is powered by a Qualcomm 652 chipset with 3GB of RAM, 32GB of storage, and a 3000 mAh battery with fast charging technology. Flanking the front face are a pair of speakers. Those grills are mirrored on the back of the phone, bordering a 16-megapixel camera and an always-on fingerprint sensor. That sensor is slower than some of the other options we've played with around this price, but it's functional and positioned well to prevent dancing the phone around in your hand, even tiny hobbit hands like mine. Appreciated because glass gets slippery. Alcatel maintains the overall look of last year's Idol, which is a good thing for the most part, as we liked that phone's design. Graceful tapers, rounded corners, and these cool edges around the speakers. Though we are happy to see the camera is more centered on this phone than the easily blocked corner shooter on the Idol 3. We still have that wonky button arrangement with the volume rocker on the right and the power button on the left. Certainly a recipe for finger confusion while you're getting used to it, and I accidentally took a lot of extra photos that I didn't need to in the camera app. The headphone jack is on the top of the phone with a micro USB port on the bottom, both of those ports well offset from the center of the device. New for this year, the back of the phone is made out of glass, raising the bar for a premium look. It feels a little like the love child of an Idol 3 and a OnePlus X. There's also this new boom key, which can be user-assigned to launch specific apps, which for this reviewer is of course tied to the camera. Software is also a balancing act for mid-range unlocked phones. Alcatel's interface here is another of what we would call stock plus, mostly what we would find from a clean build of Android with a few tweaks we appreciate, like a fifth row of icons on your home screen, a quick toggle for auto brightness in the notification shade, or shortcuts on the lock screen. The 4S includes support for gestures like drawing a C on the screen to launch a phone call. These gestures don't clear the lock screen though, so we question how much more convenient this might be than using a fingerprint and keeping shortcuts handy. Lastly, this phone ships in a VR headset, so we get a handful of apps to show that off alongside a proper store just for more VR applications. This is not a bloat-free phone, but there aren't really any egregious abuses here for pre-installed software. Looking at performance, the Qualcomm 652 chipset is a solid performer, a spiritual successor to last year's Qualcomm 808, found in the Nexus 5X or LG V10. It's capable, but it tends to run a bit on the warm side. The phone benchmarks well, and we encountered few issues sliding through the user interface. Even with only 3GB of RAM, multitasking performance is decent when sliding back and forth between a handful of services. Moving beyond communication and social media, the Idol 4S is a respectable gaming machine. Implosion ran well on high-quality settings. A Marvel Future Fight has historically been poorly optimized for Qualcomm chipsets, but here we're seeing performance which bests most of the Qualcomm 820 powered phones we've reviewed. A happy little perk to see a mid-ranger play this well. Networking performance was also impressive. Testing around town on AT&T, the Idol 4S regularly bested the Galaxy S7 by 2 to 3 decibels. And this was mirrored in Wi-Fi connections, where the Idol seemed to be able to hold on to our router signal just a bit better. Now, we did run into some throttling issues though, and they manifested most readily when using the camera. So, talking about the camera, we've got a solid 16-megapixel sensor with an f2.0 aperture, and we see some nice evolution here for the camera app. Sliding across the screen moves us between modes with controls on the left-hand side. Might I add, controls which toggle in place instead of popping out additional menus making you move the target to change options. A manual mode allows folks to dial in specific photo settings, but these sliders can be tricky to use in bright sunlight. Now, photos come out nicely exposed, bright and crisp in daylight. Like most phones, maybe they're a touch overexposed, but oversaturation is more of a concern. Warmer colors, yellows and reds, can clip detail even in shade. Now, blues, greens, and browns look terrific though. Low-light photos require patience and a steady hand. There is no optical image stabilization, so landing a crisp shot at night can be difficult. The HDR mode in daylight is slow, and it's even slower at night. Now, night mode takes a shorter scan of the scene, but it still requires you to hold still. We also get a handful of fun modes to play with. Slow motion video is oversharpened, but delivers a better than mid-pack output for a 720p image. There's also this Fuse mode, which creates a parallax effect when scanning around your subject, which works surprisingly well and does this cool sci-fi scanning thing when creating the final image. Unfortunately, panorama stitching is rather poor. This is a challenging scene, but the output still has a significant number of stitching issues. But oversaturation and panorama stitching aren't the real problems. Remember how we said the Qualcomm 652 ran a bit warm? Well, this phone has an issue with throttling. In 100-degree heat out here in LA, powering a bright Quad HD screen shooting UHD video, we were only able to shoot a couple short video clips before the phone would start throttling down and wrecking the videos. Normally, I charge each phone while driving in between setups, but that kept the battery too hot, so instead I kept it on one of my AC vents. But that didn't give us much extra time shooting. It's a shame, as the clips which weren't throttled were shaky, but otherwise a high-quality Ultra HD video. This is only my second experience using a Qualcomm 650 series chipset, and like the Sony Xperia X, which throttled when shooting HD video, now our second example throttles even faster on UHD video. We're hoping this can be addressed in a future update, but as such, we're holding off on doing a real camera review. Audio gets us back on track though. These speakers are killer and deliver a robust sound for games and videos. Headphone audio also delivers. The amp output is about what we would find on a Galaxy S7, but the quality of the DAC is just nipping at the heels of phones like the OnePlus 3. Looking at the audio branding, Waves is a well-known software developer in the recording world, and you'll find their plugins on many recording engineers' computers. Here, Waves software forms the backbone of the Idol's max audio setting, giving users granular controls over bass, treble, reverb, stereo image, and including a 10-band EQ. These settings are also tied to usage, so you can have different presets for music, movies, and general system sounds, or you can throw it all over to the Auto Select, which will make all of those audio choices for you. Now, taking a quick look at some audio tests using the Auto Select, the software is working to augment certain frequencies of sound, similar to how Boom Sound might juice up your music. It's not a setting for purists, but it does deliver more colorful playback. Last year's Idol carried JBL audio branding, but we're definitely more impressed with this Waves plugin. Battery life is also solid. This 3000 mAh battery gets us through the day well enough with some room to spare by dinner time. Now, we're changing up our media tests slightly. Normalizing for 50% screen brightness on the Galaxy S7, we're now setting all phones' brightness to match the same lux output. After 30 minutes of streaming video over Wi-Fi, the Idol 4S drained about 6% of its battery. Solid performance and the recharge speeds are handy for those who might need a top-off during the day. 30 minutes on the supplied charger landed a 53% recharge, a bit shy of Alcatel's claims, but still great recharging speed. Lastly, it's just fun that Alcatel is shipping this phone with a VR headset, and that Quad HD screen comes in handy for virtual reality applications. This headset is a high-quality solution for the Idol. Foam runs all the way around, even over the bridge of the nose. Cutouts provide access to the headphone and USB ports, and we get buttons, unlike some other headsets we've recently reviewed. Adjustable lenses would be nice, but otherwise we think Idol owners will enjoy this hardware. So let's wrap this up. Where's that leave us with the Alcatel Idol 4S? We love seeing evolution. Moving to a higher price point is an exciting move. We really liked the Idol 3, and everything we liked about that phone is still here, plus some great new features like higher screen resolution and more premium build materials. When looking at recent releases, this phone lands well against competing options, smack dab in between a Moto G4 Plus and a OnePlus 3. We do have some performance concerns with how quickly the phone camera can run hot, but otherwise we were impressed with the offering. Alcatel delivered an ambitious follow-up to last year's phone, which gets almost everything right, and it slots into this market right where we think it should fit. Consumers just need to check their budget, as solid competition exists on both sides of this price. As always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to this channel for our full Alcatel Idol 4S coverage, and help us out with some sharing on your favorite social networks. For Pocket Now, I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, some gadget guy on Twitter and Instagram, and I will catch you all on the next review.